Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Perspective Checks, where I sit down with friends and folks from the TTRPG community to talk about all the things that keep us coming back, or noodling, or reiterating, or anything about this wonderful TTRPG hobby we all share. Today, I am joined by an educator, a IT specialist, and game designer, Craig Hatler. Craig, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going well. Thank you for having me.
I probably should have said designer, obviously, of Shadowlight and Personae, which is a game that we're going to be referencing throughout this, and is very good example of the topic we're going to talk about today, I think, as far as portraying information, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. But before we get started on talking about our topic for the day and everything like that, I love to start my Perspective Checks interviews and chats with people with a little bit of background about you and ask the same 3 questions up front just to kind of get to know you. So the first is, how long have you been playing TTRPGs or been around the hobby?
So I would say officially since the early 90s, started in middle school. Was introduced to the Red Box Basic D&D by colleagues in the Gifted and Talented program. So 7th grade, I want to say. And basically that was... Now, but the funny thing is that, I played... When I look back at everything that kind of prepared me for TTRPGs, I played Legend of Zelda, I played Castlevania, all these console games, digital games, were very RPG-ish.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I feel like it's just a natural progression. I feel like if I had been introduced to them in elementary school, chances are if somebody had put a player's handbook in front of me for first edition, or, about 89 was second edition, I would have been, if I had a chance to play sooner, I probably would have been playing sooner, but it's just the way that it all worked out. So I was fully in it by high school. I was playing D&D, playing Werewolf, the Apocalypse, TSR's Marvel RPG.
Oh, yeah.
Shadowrun.
Is that the yellow box one? The TSR Marvel one?
Different. Well, one of the boxes was yellow, yes.
Yeah.
FASERIP is the abbreviation for
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have snagged it at a flea market not that long ago. I saw it and I was like, kind of want to get this. I don't know what this is. And then I looked into it and I was like, oh, I totally should have snagged that.
It is out there in the RPG ether. I want to say that somebody has made it current, and I'm going to have to make a note for myself to look for it. But
oh, neat.
But yeah, so over 30 years, basically, never really took a break. Maybe I should say never stopped. Mm-hmm. Took a break for a year here and there, but never stopped.
Yeah, and I've talked to multiple people who played, like you said, middle school, right? 90s. They learned it, they got a taste of it, and then a lot of people disappear for a while, right? Either because they're figuring out what they're doing, if they're in high school or they're in college or whatever, and then they come back to it as adults. But yeah, never stopping. You've kind of seen the whole gamut of, I joke with my friends a lot about it is really funny if you do a little bit of RPG history, how different and distinct the decades feel, design wise. Yeah. It's kind of interesting, the 90s, much like the comics, White Wolf dominated with a lot of edgy stuff, and it got kind of like that because of 2 decades, 15 plus years of high fantasy sorcery, sword and sorcery D&D stuff, and then the backlash. Anyway,
and it was all this answer to the very highly traditional war gamey aspect of D&D. Modules and tournaments and so White Wolf, World of Darkness, Vampire was all kind of an answer to that, that people wanted the kind of games that they're getting from actual plays that are on the internet now. And the 90s answer to that was World of Darkness.
Yeah.
Heavy on the drama, heavy on the character interaction, and now it's it also blows my mind that Vampire the Masquerade, there are people that, I played, so the funny thing is that I played Vampire the Masquerade for the very first time, literally 6 weeks ago at the end of June, so that we had free RPG day.
Yeah.
One of the local stores, somebody ran a demo, and I played a ton of Werewolf. I played some Changeling. I played White Wolf's all other line with Aberrant, if you've ever heard of that.
Yeah,
Aberrant
yeah.
Adventure Aeon.
Mm-hmm.
Played that a bunch. Never played a vampire once. But the fact that it's still around just blows. I mean, it just blows my mind. That is all that the hobby has survived for as long as it has, and
Mm-hmm.
it continues to survive, and it thrives. And it has thrived, and is where it's at with actual play and Critical Role, and the fact that it has taken on this. It has been adopted to such a degree that when I was playing it in middle school and high school, I got made fun of, and
Yeah.
now it's taking over like Madison Square Garden. I mean, I,
I was somewhere recently. We just this past weekend, my wife and I took our son to a local con,
Mhm.
just to like walk around, and like people were selling, you get all your trinkets, you get all these things. The amount of, and this wasn't even like a TTRPG focused one, like it's a comic
Right.
convention primarily, but the amount of people who showed up either in cosplay or they were selling things like trinkets and little 3D printed things and all this stuff, and the amount of Critical Role stuff I saw
Yeah.
was shocking to me, that I was like, okay, this is like, I've known this, like it's not just tangentially media touchstone anymore, like where, like, 2016, 10 years ago, me in grad school, like starting to follow Critical Role campaign 1 and like really realizing like the depths of what TTRPGs could do. But it's not, like you said, it's not a nerdy thing anymore. I have cousins that are in high school right now, and they like they like text me because they're like, can you tell me more about D&D, because like it's cool, and like we want to tell people like we know it. And
I was like, when did this happen?
it's like, what on earth? They were like, can you give me like a mini so I can bring it into high school? I was like, are you kidding me? Like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, really funny. But we've gone off on a little bit of a tangent, but I
So
do
that's
love
question number one. So question number one. Now question number two.
question number 2. What have you been playing lately? Have you been playing any different kinds of games?
Yes. So what have I been playing lately? I have been very fortunate that I have friends and colleagues and my partner who I met because of D&D, which I'll get to in a little bit. But they basically signed on to let me run a 10-session Shadowlight and Persona campaign, which I will get into probably at some point. But
Mm-hmm.
there's that. I have been playing D&D on. Had to take a little bit. July was a dumpster fire of scheduling for so many reasons for so many people. But one of our local people, we have a community of role players here in what's called the Triangle. So it's Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill is what's called the Research Triangle, which is funny because if you're outside of it, you think, oh, these towns are like right next to each other. No, they're not at all. They're like 20, 25 miles away from each other. Like it's kind of silly, but nevertheless. So the group is called Raleigh Tabletop Role Players, RTR. We've been around since 2009, approximately. Very, very active. COVID came, completely just gutted,
Yeah.
the participation levels, but it's slowly making its way back. So I've been active in that since 2022, thereabouts. And so all of these people that I'm running this in-person game for are by virtue of RTR. I've been running D&D for, are you familiar with Alamo Drafthouse?
No.
So it's a small chain of art house style cinemas. Basically, they run first run movies, but they also do like throwbacks, re-releases, anniversaries, and then smaller, sometimes indie movies.
Cool.
But all the locations have events that are other than movies, and one of them is D&D. So once a month, people get to buy tickets and they get to have a one-shot adventure run for them. So I've been doing that now for it started in 2023, but it really didn't kick off until 2024. So all of 2024 and now most of 2025. And like I said, that's how I met my girlfriend. And it's been pretty instrumental in networking and meeting new people and and so many cool stories. One friend, her name is Hannah. She sat down to my table for the first time one month, and she's like, "You're my first ever dungeon master. I've been watching actual plays for the last 4 years. This is the first time I get to play D&D, and it's just blowing my mind on so many levels." I'm like, yeah, I've been playing this since I was 12.
But like, again, and yeah, we're gonna get off topic really quick, but like, when I first started playing, I didn't know any of like the big actual plays, and even then, like you watch the beginning of Critical Role. Tell people to go back and start watching like Geek and Sundry
Campaign
Critical
one.
Role. You know, like
Yeah.
it's not what it is now, right?
No.
But yeah, I mean, like, and then even then, like the home games that you have are just so different, right? Even if you can sit there and you and your friends are so all in and like it's cinematic in your minds, the difference, right, is palpable. But I
So,
love I
yeah,
love community stuff like that. Like when communities are going to put together events and stuff like
yeah.
that. Like it's so good, and I love that there's more places doing this all the time.
So D&D, Shadowlight Persona, have played some one shots here and there. So we have another Triangle local. His podcast channel is called Third Floor Wars.
Oh
His
yeah, Craig.
yes.
Yeah,
So,
great interviewer. Honestly,
he's
he's incredible.
fantastic. Yes.
He's very good.
So I interviewed with him, and my interview was forthcoming for it to be published. But then he is running for me a one player, one GM game of. So the module was made by Chaosium, so it's Call of Cthulhu, but he adapted the module and he's running it with Cthulhu Dark instead of Call of Cthulhu,
Oh, nice.
which I'm very glad for because I am not a Call of Cthulhu fan.
Oh
I'm not.
no,
I'm not a
the
fan of.
BRP.
I'm not a BRP fan.
Gotcha.
I love the vibe. I love the source material, all that stuff. But I'm not a BRP fan. It's really just too trad and too. Doesn't really do anything for me. But that started. So that started. The first episode was not this past, but the Wednesday before. So episode 2 will be this coming Wednesday, and I think we're going to aim for 3 or 4 episodes. And 1930s around Chicago, and my character's father has been. I walked in to find him murdered,
Ooh.
and have to figure out why he was murdered.
Nice.
Yeah,
not nice in that what happened.
right.
Good pitch. Good. Yeah.
D&D, Cthulhu Dark, Shadowlight Persona, and then also too. So I've been running since June when it came out. I've been running a few times the Sablewood Messengers, which is the quick start for Daggerheart.
Oh yeah.
So I'm about to kick off a campaign with a group on Tuesday nights. So we had our session 0 last Tuesday, and we're going to have session 1 tomorrow night. And still not entirely sure what I'm doing, but I understand how the game works. But as far as the actual campaign goes, we'll see.
I read the Daggerheart quick start, and I was looking through it, and I was like, okay, like there's a lot of interesting stuff here. But yeah, I have not looked into it enough, so maybe.
So it really reminds me of the story game movement that came out of the Forge. So your Apocalypse Worlds, your Lady Blackbird, all those indie games that came out 2008, 9, 10.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that, and it's just I feel like it's just way more free form than running D&D. Running D&D can be kind of trying at times. So
yeah. I agree. I'm much more on the narrative side of things nowadays, where like I can like, if you sit down at a table where you can trust people with authorial control, it's just much nicer to be like, get the mechanics out of the way. We're gonna have But so actually, you've been running and playing a bunch of different games, which is a perfect segue actually to if you're going to read and play and run all these different games, you need to learn how to run them or know how they work. So question number 3 is, what are we going to talk about today?
So we are going to talk about teaching how to play games, learning how to play games, and how you do that. Especially, I find that the biggest hurdle to go over nowadays, and I even see it in myself, is that sitting down to read a game is a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with, it's very rare that you get pulling one example right now, like Eat the Reich. Have you heard of that game by Rowan Reckon Deckard?
Mm-hmm.
That game is like 60 pages,
Yep.
Super rules light, art, like crazy art the entire way through, colorful, nuts, like just really evocative and in your face. Morkborg. Morkborg's Morkborg's rules are on like the back page. It's like 2 columns and there's what you need. But the whole book is like this, like in your face art. You know what I mean? Like, and then you have other games like your Daggerhearts, like your D&Ds, right? Like we're asking you to read.
Valiant, Pathfinder.
Right. Read this 600 page book. It's like, no,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, we're going to talk about learning and teaching, and I think that your background, and also from what I've seen of Shadowlight and Persona, aids, player aids, and kind of just like, to borrow a IT phrase, like UI UX, right? User interface, user experience, how you portray and provide information to players so it's easier for them to digest and learn the game. Again, we were talking before we started recording, as somebody who is trying to get into game design, my ideas are like, hey, I feel like these ideas are really good, and like in my mind I'm like, they work, but then telling people or showing people this is how they work is not easy, right? Yeah.
And especially for somebody that, so there's like two aspects to it. There was very, very quick background.
Yeah.
It all started in 2007, and it was an answer to Wizards deciding to go with 4th edition D&D. The group that I was with in New Jersey, we were aiming to get an original fantasy setting published using 3.5, and then they dropped 4th edition. And not only did they drop 4th edition, they said, hey, you know what? We're going to introduce a brand new rule set, and we're going to introduce a new license. So no, this will not be released under the OGL. And so we all looked at each other and said, well, if this is going to be the case, then we might as well not only make our own setting, we might as well make our own system. But I had played so many different games in so many different genres that I said, well, okay, I want to see if this system will work with space opera, with Western, with horror, almost a GURPS-like mentality. I mean, I never played GURPS, but I read the books like crazy. I think they're some of the best researched books as far as what they have to offer, and some of those supplements are maybe like 100 and change pages. And what the density of source material that they offer is I don't think there's any other game that's been out there like that.
I would agree. I've picked up GURPS PDFs just to be like, hey, I want to make a game in this genre, right? And I'm like, I don't know if there's very many games in this genre, and like maybe I own one or two, so I can take a look and be like, what did they do with it? But like, I guarantee you there's a GURPS thing for whatever you want to do. And just go get it and read it, because they're going to present their very generic D6 kind of GURPS game, right? But the information that they're giving you to use to build this GURPS game is so valuable that, like, yeah. So
to the point that the cyberpunk book was seized by the U.S. Treasury. Go out there and take a look at that story. For that story, it's actually on Steve Jackson's Games website. They basically thought that the GURPS Cyberpunk book was a handbook on computer crime, and they broke into their offices, took computers, hard drives, manuscripts, and didn't return all of it. Ultimately, once
man.
And it was, some of it was redacted. It's crazy. That is how good the quality of their work is.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's wild, and such a bummer that they did not get that stuff back.
So I became okay. Let's take this for a spin with other than just your D&D-esque fantasy. Let's do space opera. Let's do Western. Let's do cyberpunk. I love Shadowrun, but I hate the rules.
I'm so glad you said that. When you said I love Shadowrun, I went, oh no.
Oh yeah, I mean, magic and high tech mixed in an alternate real world history.
Oh, vibes are great.
Vibes are great. Rules, terrible.
Yeah.
So I've filed the serial numbers off and used Persona to run Shadowrun, and ultimately that's where my head came. My head's been at where it is take this very fundamental rule system, decide what kind of game you want to play, and run with it. And I'll put out these little supplemental zines along the way and show you how you can specifically hack it to do what you want to do with it. But even my hacks are going to be like my very first one, which is a quote-unquote space opera. But it's space opera plus post-apocalypse, because it's what if Star Wars happened, but nobody won.
It was just destruction,
no alliance,
right?
no empire, nothing. It's just total chaos. And the aftermath of that, what do you do? I was raised on science fantasy. I was raised on He-Man and Thundercats and Voltron. I was Thundar the Barbarian. Like I want plasma rifles just as alongside as I want wizards throwing spells. Like
yeah,
I will gladly take that. And So I'm going to genre bend. I'm going to mix. I don't need a game to adhere to one or the other or the third.
Hmm. Yeah, you like flexibility in the rule set
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
able to accommodate, yeah, like you said, bends to the generalized genre fiction, right?
yes.
So, as somebody who works in IT, at least some of the time right now, and plays CTRPGs, did you have a moment of like, oh no, like this is a horrible layout for like learning this game, or was there ever like a moment where you looked at a rule book and went, oh my god, this is like the greatest thing I've seen for rules referencing, that made you want to, lay your game out a certain way or anything like that?
I would say that, well, first of all, I mean, if we want to talk about horrible, I mean, an SRD that is just a wall of text is the worst way to read a game.
Hmm.
That for the longest time, that's what Persona looked like.
Hmm.
We were only playing it internally. We were as the group that designed it. So we had a round robin. Okay, this person's going to run a campaign for a little while. This person's going to run a campaign for a little while. But it was just a group of 5 or 6 of us for the longest time, and I was the one back in 2022 that said, okay, now I want to dust it off. I want to polish it up, and I want to make it. I want it because I had gotten more and more involved in the TTRPG community online by way of Twitter, because there was the diaspora from the fall of Google Plus, which I
Hmm.
will never not be salty over. I loved it so
Yeah,
much.
that
Yeah.
community, I was not part of it, but every time I hear people talk about it, I'm like, oh, I jokingly say, like, can we bring back forums? Like, I feel like the TTRPG community would embrace forums again, just
Yeah,
to get away from the horrors that is modern
social media.
post social media. Yeah, right. Like
Mhm.
X, and I mean, Blue Sky is good. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's become like a good haven for it, but it's effectively the same thing, right? And I mean, you still, stuff gets buried, right?
So yeah, so I was seeing this kind of resurgence of small bespoke games, and I was like, well, I have this thing that I worked on 15 years ago. I want to put myself out there, and that's what I decided to do. And thank goodness for itch. Itch is as problematic as it is, but
Hmm.
there's such a low barrier to entry that I bought an Affinity publisher license, and I drew upon over 20 years of not necessarily being a graphic design professional, but always being an enthusiast. I mean,
Hmm.
I learned desktop publishing in high school, and have always done it to some degree of professionalism, but never. It was never a livelihood. I was never had a job as a graphic designer or anything like that. So, I mean, I worked with everything from Microsoft Word to do layout with. So Adobe, the cost for entry to Adobe was always ridiculous. But when Affinity came out and I saw that, I was like, okay, it's a perpetual license. It's really affordable. They offer discounts all the time. I'm like, boom, done.
Yep.
And
Same.
so using Affinity reminds me a lot of the old days of the predecessor to. I never used Quark, but the predecessor to Adobe InDesign was an application called PageMaker by a company called Aldus. And Adobe bought them. So went from being Aldus PageMaker to Adobe PageMaker, and then they sunset Adobe PageMaker and went forward with InDesign.
Oh,
But Affinity was really easy to pick up.
yeah.
And so basically I started to say, like, this thing needs to have white space. Like, it needs to have content presented in a not necessarily it needs to be differentiated.
Yeah.
So it needs to
Break
not
up your
be
eye
wall of
lines,
text.
right?
Yeah, it needs to be more than just walls of text. Because as soon as you see a paragraph and it's not split up at all, people's eyes glaze over and they go and they're done. So I had started with PowerPoint slide decks where I was breaking things up more to be more visually appealing. And then the slide decks led to me saying, okay, you know what? Maybe, especially because there's been such a strong resurgence in zines,
Yeah.
um, that, well, why don't I turn my slide decks into my basic game? And so that's really the direction that I went in. And I did my crowdfunding on itch. to be able to get logos and some branding funded. And that's kind of when I got everything up on itch, and that's when it started to take off. And it's still challenging to get people interested in it, and it's still challenging to teach the game.
Hmm.
But I feel like the more that I work on my presentation, helps me to refine my ideas on what I want the game to look like.
That's a
Uh,
good point, right? Yeah, I mean, and I've heard this a lot from people recently too, right? Where like I think it was Fari RPGs, a fellow Rainy, except he goes by Rene, French Canadian designer,
oh yes,
did
yes,
RP Deshays. Yeah,
yes. As a matter of fact, there is he wrote a riff off of Breathless that
yeah.
was space opera inspired called Renegades, and
Oh yeah.
I ran that a one shot of that for him and a couple of other folks. The recording is on my Beehive. I have a one page devoted to all my actual play recordings, and it's up there. And also too, the Persona SRD is hosted on his Keeper.
Oh, awesome.
Yes. Yes, very familiar with Rene Pierre. Yes.
Yeah, he did an interview recently with, I want to say, Andy from Pandion or it might have been, but they just basically said like the first thing you should do is just like get your game out, right? Like it doesn't like again, like put it out as a wall of text, right? And then like you just said, right? Like every time you go back and you edit it because you've run it and you've thought of a different way to present something or say something or explain something, and you take a little bit of time and you get better at the skills like layout and knowing where to leave white space and knowing how to break up that wall of text in an interesting way, or like help people digest it into more bite-sized chunks or whatever, right? Goes a long way in just there's a great phrase like I'm gonna butcher whatever it is, but like sometimes the best way to learn something is to teach that thing, right? You know what I mean? Like,
Which is the exact opposite of the conventional wisdom that those who can't do teach.
right?
Which is
Yeah,
just abjectly terrible. Just
yeah, it's a pretty
awful.
bad take for sure.
But yes, because it gets you out of your own, especially when you've made a thing when you've made a thing that exists primarily inside of your own head, and you get it out of your own head and you get it in front of people and you get the feedback. So just within the last year, so what, November, so 8 months or so ago. So one of the things that RTR always did a quarterly game day in person, and they revived that last fall. Called it Dark Carnival as this game day. So all the games were horror themed,
Nice.
moody, gothic horror. And so I ran Shadowlight and Persona with a very similar theme in mind, and I put pre-generated characters in front of everybody, and one of the responses was squarely a UI UX response feedback, which was, "I'm dyslexic and I do not understand what's going on with this character sheet."
Oh
Like,
yeah,
okay, I I'm sorry. I feel bad that I can't get this across to you, but let me think about what I can do to improve on that. And I think the biggest thing is that I think in a certain way, so I present in a certain way, but that all will never completely line up with other people. And so when I say, oh, well, I have this legend and I have abbreviations, and so all of my enhancements are listed, and following every enhancement is a list of their identifiers, which, this one might be superior and this one might be exceptional. So I have a little legend that says S for superior, X
yeah,
for exceptional, C for conditional. And so the name of every enhancement is followed by all those letters. Makes
right.
sense to me. But
But
I have somebody says to me, well, I've got to go back and forth between your legend and the name of the enhancement, and I'm getting lost, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I hear you. So I went back to the drawing board as far as my characters, my pre-gen layout. Now, my pre-gen layout definitely does not match a standard blank character sheet.
mhm, try and present less so they can just get going, right?
But
Yeah,
yeah, in the case of a pre-gen where I'm wanting to try and get people to understand the core, the foundational concepts quickly because of limited time in a demo setting environment, Yeah, so I mean, that is a huge example of UI UX. Like, so sometimes it's not even white space. Sometimes it's, hey, what you're doing here, like I can read. There's no problem with that, but how you're presenting this text is not helpful.
Hmm.
And I am all in favor of criticism as long as it's constructive.
Yeah.
Don't tell me, okay, tell me that you didn't have fun because XYZ. Tell me, you don't understand that you're struggling, blah, 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 because those things will only contribute to my continuous improvement and my iteration on everything.
Hmm. Yeah. If it's something like this pre-gen character sheet wasn't easy to follow, then it's great because, like you said, and that doesn't match the normal player character sheet, right? For like a larger game where you're filling out everything yourself. These
Right.
pre-gens are a stripped down version, a simpler, let's get going in this demo or this one shot or what have you. But both of those represent a player aid, right? Like they really are like, and people love to talk about this again, going back to our very early conversations about like the TTRPG space right now is, whether we like it or not, heavily informed by actual plays, right? And a lot of the big actual plays have really nice miniatures and like have these like really nice table setups, and you can like lay everything out and they show you everything. And like even just those little things, and that's not exactly what we're talking about here as far as player aids, but they are visual aids.
Yep.
But there are other things that you can see other people using. Like, again, I don't like to talk a lot about D&D on this channel, mainly because one, they don't need more breath, but also because the people who I'm supporting and making the games I like, the little guys, the indie designers, right? We don't have teams of people to put out things like spell cards or, or anything like this, right? Where like these are really valuable things that if you could hand them out to players, help them break up their attention in a way,
Well,
Um,
to give you a relevant recent example, so where I teach, which is at Shaw University, which is a small HBCU in Raleigh, North Carolina, I worked with the library, and so the library has this series of like their TED Talks for all intents and purposes on all different types of subjects. And so for the last few years, I have given my TED Talk on tabletop role playing games, and yeah, and it just so happens that this past spring, not only did I have people interested in coming and listening to the talk, but then to follow it up with, hey, I said I would run a game for students, and I had students show up, and I had 4 students, diverse background, diverse gender, diverse ethnicity. ALA Games Month is coming up in November. It would be like a dream to get something fairly polished to be able to show live, to
mhm,
show this diverse cross rep, even if it's D&D. It's that
sure.
it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
But to bring this back to the whole UI UX accessibility and all that, one thing that I really do not like about D&D Beyond is when you print out character sheets.
Oh,
Because
I
when you
haven't even
print
seen
out,
it. Is it
well,
bad?
yeah, it's a pain because the text is like maybe 8 points. It's
Oh,
it's really small and it's really dense. And so now I compare that to Daggerheart with the idea that all of your or I should say not say all, but many of your characters' abilities are presented on the cards.
yeah.
I was in the process of like, okay, what can I do to take the D&D character sheet and break it up so that it's more digestible for my student players? And now with Daggerheart, I want to turn around and be like, now I want to introduce these kids to Daggerheart.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I just feel like it's way more freeing and you don't have to worry about, oh, is this a bonus action or is this a standard action? And
Hmm.
like you don't worry about the action economy. You don't have to worry about keeping track of initiative and just there's a lot of things that I like about Daggerheart that I feel like, and again, I can say that because I've played second, third, fourth, and fifth
Yeah.
edition of D&D. And don't get me wrong, we've come a long way since second edition and stuff like THACO and weapon speed and rates of fire and all.
Yeah.
demi-human level limits, and every class has their own XP progression, and
Yep.
dual classing versus multi-classing, and all, and you roll high for these things, but low for these things. So, I mean, we've come a long way for that. Don't get me wrong, but I like that there are all different types of games.
But also, like you said, we've come a long way from those.
Yeah,
But those were things that, I mean, it's hard to say they would be easy to teach, right? Like there's a lot of conditional rules, right? And conditional rules aren't a bad thing if the game and the experience that you're trying to deliver at the table with the game that you're playing or designing accommodates for that or considers those things, right? Like for example, Shadowlight and Persona, it's not a rules light game. If
it's not.
yeah,
No,
your game is
it can be.
relatively crunchy,
It
you
can
know.
be. I mean, I can take out
Yeah.
plenty of things. I can turn knobs and flip switches, and I can make it way lighter. I can say,
Hmm.
hey, you know what? Everybody gets 3 dice, and
Hmm.
when you take your attributes, we can forget all about order of importance and priority. I can just say you have 10 points. You put three, three, two, two, one, one, or whatever. I can make it way lighter, but it could also be a whole lot crunchier.
Right. But I mean, that's the intention of your game that you're creating, right? Which is
Yeah,
like you want it to be able to emulate different genres, right, within
yeah,
things, and like, and depending on the table, some people might really want to dive in to the nitty gritty of whatever their genre of choice is, and other people, as they see the hacks that you're doing with these zines,
yep,
say, oh, like wow, like when you do remove this, like it really does for our table make X, Y, and Z easier, right? And finding a way to present that information, like you said, like with Daggerheart, when you can just give people cards, like,
yeah,
oh wow, this makes it a lot easier than a D&D character sheet printed out pre-filled with tiny font.
yeah.
My 9-year-old nephew recently asked, "Can I can you run my first D&D game for me?" And my first thought, because I'm me, was like, "Yes." And we're never going to play D&D, and I'm never going to tell you that we're not going to play D&D. But his dad was like, give the kid D&D, like it's his first one, like let's like let him get the classic. And I was like, all
Yeah.
right. So then I wrote a one shot that was like, I included as many classic characters as I could. I was like Rust Monster, Gelatinous Cube, right? Like I was just like, I was going down the list of like gotta hit all the classics.
Yeah.
But then it was like, I can hand my brother-in-law and his wife 5e character sheets, and they're gonna be like, gotcha. If I handed a 5e character sheet to my 9-year-old nephew, I was like, he's a smart kid, I think he could get it. But instead, I was like, I'm going to do this a different way. And I like took a piece of paper, went landscape with it, separated into 3 colored columns, which
Mhm.
was like red is your combat column. And I just like put a few like notes. And I
Right.
was like, you don't have to worry about these numbers, right? The game doesn't, like that game, they want you to buy all the accessories to make that
Oh, yeah.
easier, right? But for other people, there's a consideration there, which is like, consider the people you're making this game for. You know, if you're making a game where not everyone's going to need these, but some people might, and it's not that hard for you to do, maybe do make little like cheat sheet cards, reference sheets, things like that, right? Like I think you have one for S&P. You
Yep.
have a reference sheet. Those things are gold. They really are. It's so good to have.
And what I've really been aiming for now, I mean, it's always been there. The idea of goals, objectives. We're not just okay. I see the monster, I attack the monster, I kill the
Yeah.
monster. It's like, well,
Yeah.
why do you want to attack the monster? Why do you want to kill the monster? Like, what is at stake? What's your goal? I really have been trying to make inroads towards it being intentional,
Yeah.
about the roles being intentional, and the outcomes and the guiding of the story in different directions. I really want to. I have the tools available to make it more about binary success and failure, and to have that cooked in, and to be
Hmm.
like, okay, like when you succeed, it's in the clear. When you fail, it's this. But you can have a mixed success. But if there's sometimes there's going to be situations where I'm going to say to you don't have to roll. Like, you don't have to roll for everything.
Yeah.
Rolling should mean something. And in that vein, I make the reference sheets in such a way to say, like, I had somebody say to me, well, your terminology is just so different. Like, you talk about like issuing challenges and challenge. I'm like, yeah, but let's distill it a little bit. You tell me what you want to do, and I will tell you what you have to roll.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to a point where we'll reach a cadence, and you'll know when it's right to roll, when it's not. What you have to roll, and most of the terminology, it's background.
No, I was actually going to say that exact same thing.
It's primarily intended to give people tools to, when they go to write their own enhancements or their own preternae or their own spheres, to tap into the rules text when you issue a challenge and this when somebody reaches this shock level
Mm-hmm.
when you're in a violent encounter so you don't necessarily have to use all that specific jargon in the course of play, but it becomes relevant when you are crafting, because I provide examples for all of your traits, but ultimately one of the things that I get the most, where I get the most fulfillment, is writing my own personally, and then having other people take the examples and write their own and say, hey, this is what I've got in mind. What do you think? And that's where I get the most fulfillment.
Yeah, because you can either see it clicking and you're like, oh, see, you get it because you had to go through the, you know what I mean? Like you saw how this is phrased, this works, and like you can come up with an alternative. And then everything else has to fall into place for them a little better because they're like, I see how this is built. Yeah.
Well, I can build flowcharts to say, I want to do a thing. Okay, what kind of thing do you want to do? Why do you want to do this thing? What's at stake? What are your goals and objectives? Do you want to learn something? Do you want to communicate with somebody? Okay, well, that's primarily nonviolent, and that's going to be more of an interaction challenge. Okay, on the other side of the coin, well, I want to force this person to do a thing. I want if they don't do this, I'm going to hurt them, or if they don't do this, I'm going to,
Even the threat of violence,
wear
right?
them. I'm sorry.
Even the threat of violence, I would probably consider a violent encounter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the threat of violence is a different type of challenge than an outright, I just punch you.
Punch them in the face, right? Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And actually, I like how in your game, you do intentionally write, like, it's not just, again, it starts with, I want to do a thing, right?
Yeah.
But then it's like, for the chorus, which is your term for the GM, it explicitly says, like, what is your intention, right? Like, what, not just I want to do a thing, like why and how, and like all this matter, right? In a way that it's going to inform the way that you're going to build your dice pool and the things that you're going to have available to you as far as making, issuing the challenge, or which is really just a way of saying we're going to roll for this, right? So again, like you said, a lot of times the terminology is just you getting used to how the game wants you to think about why rolls matter, right?
Yes.
In a game like D&D, typically they're asking you to roll a D20 in like two situations. One, like you need to hit something or do something, right? Like, very discreetly, or they want you to hand wave something like persuasion or whatever. But like in this game where you're considering these whys and hows, then we need to ask those questions. And it's totally reasonable that the terminology is going to be a little different in order to reflect why you designed it that way, right? And why it's going to provide a different kind of experience than just roll, number, beat it, done. You know what I mean? Like that feels flatter. Like this is giving it more, like you said, weight, right? To every decision, to the role play,
the consequences, the course of the story. And even more, even within just the last, I guess, just this year. So Vincent Baker on Blue Sky posted this thing where he talked about like the way that a game deals with hit points and damage and whatever is communication. And it communicates stakes, and it communicates threat and all these things. And I looked at, and I'm like, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. And the way that S&P deals with vitality and shock is purely physical. And I'm like, but there's going to be times where challenges are going to be, somebody is going to say, I want to do this thing, but my character doesn't believe, they're a pacifist, or they want, they believe in negotiation and diplomacy, and violence is a last resort. So they should have a way to be able to overcome obstacles that don't involve combat, that don't involve
Mm-hmm.
just wearing down somebody's health.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided I was going to come up with, instead of just one vitality bucket, I was going to do three, and then they line up with my different types of challenges. So the
Mm-hmm.
social vitality, the savvy, will be you can wear it down from interaction challenges, and the obstinance, the quote unquote mental, I guess you can call it mental vitality, would be through power challenges, and then finally, your resilience is your physical vitality, and could be worn down through combat, through violent encounters. And so I can tie those things together and say, this is how you want to achieve this. Well, then you can work on wearing down his savvy. This is how
Mm-hmm.
you want to. You can work on wearing down his obstinance. You can work on wearing down his resilience. You don't care. He's standing in the way of a safe door, and inside of it is $50 million, and you don't care whether he lives or dies. Well, then you just, blam, dead. Boom, move on. Okay.
Well, $50 million. I mean, no, but these are all options, right? And like through play, through discussing this, through teaching this, through playing this with people, they've shown you that there are ways that either things need to be communicated or things need to be designed and communicated in a way that can approach and accommodate all of these different play styles, right? Which is, like you said, the learning styles too, right? Like your brain has been building this and designing this in such a way that you communicate it in a certain way, but some people are going to need it presented or what have you in a different way.
And in the classroom and in pedagogy, you have, the concept of multiple intelligences,
Mm-hmm.
and you have the concept of differentiated instruction. So not everyone is going to learn the best by just sitting and listening to a teacher lecture. Not everybody is going to learn the best by reading text. Not everybody is going to learn the best by watching videos. Everybody it's not to say that they won't learn in those ways, but everybody has an optimum way that they learn. Everybody has an optimum kinesthetic and social emotional and visual. And I think as humans, I think that we are pretty much universally visual learners.
Mm-hmm.
People say, well, I'm a very visual learner. I think that's I think that is
Yeah.
very much a way that is, I think visual learning is very much a common human trait, but there are definitely some people that learn better visually or learn better by reading. Like, I know for me, I will never, hardly ever, I should say never is a strong word. I will find it very difficult to learn from lecture and learn from watching a video. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't sell me something and then say, oh, the instructions here, go to YouTube and watch this video on the instructions. I'm like, why?
It's the only way.
I put together, I bought, my mom bought an outdoor grill, and the instructions that came with the package, I had to go and watch their YouTube video because their written instructions were so bad. And it's like, if I have to watch your YouTube video, then that means your written instructions are bad.
Yeah, right. Right. And there's a parallel here though too, right? Like there's a parallel, which is like,
give me live play, give me recordings of, I personally derive no enjoyment out of watching people play RPGs. I would much rather play than watch people play.
Yeah.
But if I want to learn how to play a game, I might watch a demo.
Right. Demo being much different too than a 2-hour AP where they might touch on like 3 or 4 of the mechanics that you're like, I just need to know, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So like,
there are APs that are purely like improvisational theater.
Yeah.
And there are APs that are, we're going to teach you how to play this game.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I will say about Darrington Press, because it's not just Daggerheart, but Darrington Press, the people that work for Darrington Press, as far as making games, their ability to teach their games So they somehow acquired, I don't remember the circumstances, but the narrative card game For the Queen.
Oh yeah, Alex
Uh,
Roberts, great game.
it is, and I know that it existed prior to Darrington Press, but Darrington Press has the distribution rights for it now, and it's in its second edition, et cetera, et cetera. But I love that idea that the rules are on cards, and you go around the table and you
Yes,
read the cards. Everybody reads.
I have the first edition.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to grab it, but yeah, and it's in there too, where like they're like numbered, right? And it is like one person reads this, then the next person reads number two,
Yeah.
then that.
And
So good.
so I stole that lovingly. I hijacked it. I took, because I have to imagine there gets a point in time when you are sitting in front of a GM who is teaching a game where you're just going to get tired of hearing that GM's voice, because, okay, this is what we're going to do now. Okay, now this is what we're going to do. Now this is, and that goes on for 10, 15, 20 minutes. Exactly. So first of all, everybody should be reading.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I loved about For the Queen. But what I also loved about Daggerheart, apart from the game itself, was that quick start adventure. That quick start adventure is such a it's a great opening scenario. It was a very, very well crafted opening scenario, introductory scenario for new people. But the way it is structured, where you talk about how the game works and you teach the game at the same time, and all those red prompts, the only thing I wish they would do is restructure it so that those prompts can be read by everybody at the table. Or break them up more and be like, okay, the person that picked Marlowe whatever,
Yeah.
they read this part. And the person that picked this pregen reads this part. And the person that picked this pregen reads this part. Because all that reading should definitely be broken up, and read it aloud and get everybody involved at the table. Because, as far as I'm concerned, and this is not a sentiment that is original from me, and it's definitely one that I echo from other people, everybody at the table should be, in some way, shape, or form, responsible for everyone's enjoyment at the table. The GM is not the sole fun provider.
Right. Right. Yeah, be a fan of the players. A classic Baker GM principle is not just a GM principle. It is you're a person at the table principle, right? Like, you are sitting down to play this game with your friends, and you should find ways to provide your friends characters, right? The opportunity to do the things in the story that they clearly are goalposting or flagging that they want to do, right? Like, over time, you're going to know what this person derives their fun from. Tee it up for them. You know what I mean?
Right. But on the other side of the coin, the players should never feel like they're in a situation where it's like, well, you're the GM, that's your job.
Yeah,
or,
exactly.
If I look at you and I'd be like, okay, so what's the name of the tavern? Well, I don't know. You're the GM. You come up with it. It's like, no. Hold on. This is not the GM is the sole fun provider. This is, we are all in this together. Yes, previous philosophies, methodologies of RPGs were very much in that the GM is the sole fun provider, because they're the one they are the game master. They are the ones they are the final arbiter, golden rule. The GM makes the rules, all this BS. Like, I'm done with that.
Yes.
I'm like, the GM is a player. The players should have some degree of agency. We should be able to have a conversation where we talk about these things. And that's what the rules are fundamentally, is a conversation, which is another Bakerism.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the amount of times that doesn't matter what game I'm playing anymore, the amount of times that I will just open up a thing to the table and be like, oh, I have an idea, but I didn't plan for this or what have you. So literally everyone at the table, like, what do you think is a fun thing that all of us can buy in on right now? And we'll go with that. Because then in the meantime, while they're all discussing their ideas, I can sit there and be like, as the GM, being like, ooh, they said something that if it doesn't come to play right now, I have this in my back pocket now as gold. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Bringing this back to teaching and learning games too, though, you brought up something where, and I love this idea. This is very good. I recently had a discussion as well with an author who does lit RPGs, which is like, they are literary. It's basically like TTRPGs turned into books, right? Like, there's actual rule systems.
Almost?
Huh?
Like
No.
adventure?
So they're actually fiction novels, right? The
Okay.
lit RPG genre is pretty new and it's blowing up right now.
Okay.
But the concept of it is that the world in which the story takes place operates by a set of rules within which people like legitimately level up and get abilities. And
Huh.
it's not like hidden behind like prose and like the author like hiding all of these things where they're like, and then they learn this ability and I can use this in the future, right? It's like, no, like legitimately the character goes like, oh snap, I just learned like a stronger version of like fireball. Like, and they know this, like, right? Like, you know that they can control magic and they'll like straight up tell you like my magic skill improved by 5 points and now I can do this other thing. And like, it's really funny. Like, a lot of them are very power fantasy heavy. So it's not like that's not my jam, but there's some like really funny ones, some really quirky ones. So anyway, long story short, I was talking to this author about not only what lit RPGs pull from the TTRPG genre, because obviously it is like their source of like their inspiration, but what could TTRPGs learn from lit RPGs, right? Like, what's the other way around, right? Like, when somebody has taken this game and turned it into a story, what can people take from the story to make games better? And their answer to that, I think, is something that I really like, and it plays into this conversation, which is, if you are listening to this channel, I assume you're an RPG nerd, so bear with me. You know, a lot of games have like play reports like in it, right? Like, you'll have like a 2-page spread of like, GM describes the scene, player, well, I think my character wants to do this, and the GM goes like, this is an opportunity for a roll, and like, you basically read like a table play, right? You know
Okay.
what I'm talking about?
Yes.
He said this should really just be fiction, but you put on the side in like a little call out box, this is where this character rolled this thing. Like, this is why this roll was called for. But you keep the whole thing in like a story, right? And I think that would play really well too to breaking it up by the characters, right?
Yeah.
Like, have everyone pick a character for the intro, right? Like, it's a cold open of a TV show before you even introduce your character. Everybody can like read along a character's thing like from a script and understand like, when they said this thing, that's when they needed to roll this. Like, that's how this game is working. They said this, bold this thing or what have you. I think that I really like your idea of like, go around the table, make everybody read stuff, whether it's a sentence, a
Yeah.
rule. The idea of getting everyone involved is another way to make sure that everyone is learning it at the same pace, right? Because that way, if somebody doesn't understand why, everyone can stop and go, oh, let's talk about this, you know?
And to take this back to Shadow Light and Persona, and to take it back to something I brought up earlier. So I've been kind of in between because I don't understand the nuance of versioning. So I've been sticking to whole number versions for my various rules iterations for the Persona or SRD. So I am right now in between versions 3 and 4. I took a lot out of. I went to. There is a convention in New Jersey. There is a company called Double Exposure, and they host conventions.
Metatopia.
Yeah. So I was at.
I want to go so bad.
Oh yeah. You will. I think it's first of all, it's small, and I have been to big convention. I went to PAX Unplugged in 2023, and I thought that it was too big for me. Really, what I should have done is I should have just hung out at Indie Games on Demand the entire time, and I think I would have had a much better time. But Metatopia is small. All the double exposure conventions are small. I grew up in northern New Jersey, so I grew up close to them. I didn't really start attending them until way later, much more as an adult. But so stuff that I took away from playtesting at Metatopia last year, stuff that I have done really just within the last year has moved me in the direction of version 4. And I have considered myself incredibly fortunate that my in-person group has allowed me to say, okay, here's a new version of the blank character sheet because I've made changes. Here you go. Time to recopy your character. And I've done that now, I think, twice. And so we're about ready to wrap up. We have, I think, we have 2 more sessions left. What I have been doing is I have found as I've this stage where I'm at as far as being a GM, I have found that I do best when I grab something that I can have in front of me so that's written, that's pre-written, published, whatever you want to call it. So the very first thing that I kicked off this campaign with was, are you familiar with Dungeon Club, DNGN Club?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so they put out something called Escape the Mall, which was they've done one where it was like gas station and whatever, but this one that they did called Escape the Mall. So this game is set in 2000, and it is a bunch of kids who went to high school together, and they're coming back to their hometown for their 15th high school reunion. So the first session was Escape the Mall, and that's what I've done is that's kind of how I've structured the campaign is every session or session or so, I've grabbed a quick print and play thing that I have in front of me, and then use that as my scaffolding to hang the larger campaign from, and have adapted on the fly to S&P.
Right, exactly. And exactly, that's a good way to test your
Yes,
system
yes,
in doing certain things. Yeah.
yeah, especially since I'm in between versions.
Yeah.
So I consider myself incredibly fortunate that they have all been on this ride with me, and they've bought into it, and because it's highly experimental, and it's highly in flux, and certain people would be turned off by it, and I'm just glad that they've been on the ride with me, and
And also, what a great way to test these ways of communicating information, right? It's like they've been used to a certain character sheet, they've gotten used to it, and then you say, I thought of something and I want to riff on it and I want to give you this one. Pour it over your character and tell me if you like what you're seeing now more, or like, you know what I mean? Like pros and cons. Like, yeah, you have a great group to like talk about it and be like, okay, this is working and that does deliver what I wanted it to do a little better or what have you.
but to go back to the having everybody read things at the table, somebody gave me a really good idea that I had that's just barely like in its infancy, but I call the GM in Shadowlight Persona the chorus, and a lot of that has to do with the conceit that there's so much inspiration from Greek drama and from the stage and all these things. So you have the chorus, you have your players, you have your I've taken the analogy in certain directions, but the way that the basic game is structured, you have your casting and you have your set design and you have your showtime. I'm borrowing so much from theater and from Greek drama and whatever. The masks in the logo,
Oh
your
yeah.
drama masks. Somebody gave me this idea that what if you have a scene where you have 5 players at the table, and in this scene there's only 2. If there are other NPCs at the table, how can you give out those NPC roles to other players as if the chorus is more than just the one GM person?
Yeah, right. You're not involved as a player.
Right.
Hop on our side.
Yeah. And I don't know how to do that, but it just seems super interesting.
That is very cool. So I will give you one little thing that I ran a belonging outside belonging game. I don't know if you're familiar with those.
I am in
Yeah,
a variety of ways, but I will respond when you are finished.
yeah. I hacked a game called Thursday, which
Okay.
is a time loop game based on, oh gosh, what was that TV show? Anyway, it's based on a TV show where a woman dies at the end of every day or whatever and starts over or whatever. So it's a time loop game, and I ran it. And basically, what's really cool is not only are people playing characters, but they're supposed to also take on. Effectively, it's a GM-less game. I
Right.
ran it for a stream for my friends, so I was kind of facilitating the whole time. But in a traditional game, you play characters, but everyone also has a second role when you're not there, right? So if someone else's character's in the spotlight, everybody at the table has their character, and then one person plays the city, which is like set the scene, right? One person plays friendly NPCs, so people willing to help you. One person plays antagonistic NPCs, and another person I think just gets to say cut, basically, like gets to
Okay.
just be like, and we're done here,
Right.
which is really cool. But I mean, like, there is a way I think that like, and you don't have to lock yourself into these roles, but like it might be worth looking into as something that like optional roles. So like if your character's not in the scene, throw it out there to the chorus. Hey, I'll play the antagonistic side of whatever.
I want a solo version. I want to be able to use Satellite and Persona to write solo games. I want to be able to write GM-less games. So In my grand, ambitious vision for what the Shadowlight and Persona core guide would look like, which is way more than just the basic game, there would be sections, maybe appendices that would say, this is how you would play it as a solo game. This is how you
Yeah.
would play it as a GMless game. But to go back to your point about belonging outside belonging, I played Wander Home and loved it. But I did help to play test a game. They are called Lost Guide Games. They wrote their own hack of belonging outside belonging, and it's called Neon Shadows. And so it is GMless. And you know how in Wander Home you have the tokens?
Yep.
Well, they did away with that for Neon Shadows, and they did they they called it, because they're incredibly snarky, they call it the dice system, but the dice system stands for deck of something, something, and something. So it
That's
uses
funny.
a standard deck of playing cards, and everybody. So it's GMless. So everybody is basically has the same degree of agency. But if there's ever any sort of contest, it's literally you have your hand and you have the deck in front, and it's, well, okay, you're going up against an NPC. Well, the NPC flips from the deck. You play from your hand. The different suits represent. So the diamond represents, I want to say, maybe intellect, and the hearts represent emotion. The
Hmm.
clubs represent physicality, but the spades represent fate. And so there's a table. So if a spade card comes out, you look at the table, and the table is this list of like a dozen just random events. But
Very cool.
you build your setting as a group first, and the game walks you through that. And I was very very excited and very proud to have been involved in that play test a couple times with them. So I definitely recommend that you take a look at it.
Will
Um,
do.
because
Yeah, and I'm sure.
I love that idea of using the standard, it being GMless and using the deck of playing cards. You build your characters very similarly to the way you would build them, I'm guessing, in Belonging Outside Belonging, but it's tailored to this playing card mechanic.
Right, a couple draws and you have like your traits and a couple
Yeah,
strong moves or
yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, and I'm sure when you take a game like that and you hack it and you need to present information a little differently, very interested to see how they give that information, like portray that information in a way that helps it feel like a game if you're familiar with Belonging Outside Belonging, but also informs you how it plays differently. Awesome. Well, I think we're getting up over an hour. If it's cool with you, I don't know if you want to. I'll let you talk a little more about Shadowlight and
No,
Persona.
I believe I have. I think we've covered it sufficiently, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, we've had a good chat for sure.
Yeah.
But we still have 3 questions to end it,
Okay.
I end all of my interviews. So
Okay.
we're gonna ask the same 3 questions everyone gets at the end. The first being my favorite of all the questions. Feel free to go out as much as you want on this one. It is: do you have any last bits of wisdom, advice, or homework for listeners?
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, homework is easy. I mean, I have an itch page where I have a self-designed, self-published TTRPG that is pay what you want. So your homework is to go to craighatler.itch.io and download it for however much. It could be zero. I just want people to play my game. I want people to read it. I want people to play it. Not only is the entirety of the SRD there, but the basic game is there. All the lore is in a separate sense. So even the lore is released under Creative Commons. Please read it. Please reach out to me. Ask me about it. Try building your own characters. Engage with it somehow. That would be my homework. It would make my heart very happy.
I love how simple that is too. Right? It's like, well, one, go get it for free, but two, make a character. And I feel like we didn't talk about how important that is to learning a game as an aid. But yeah, we'll get there. Well,
The character sheet is maybe the primary way to learn how to play a game, and making a character is probably just right. The two of them are like neck and neck. Bits of wisdom: play all the games,
all of them,
all of them.
all of them.
Play
You
as
could do it.
many different games as you can.
I believe in you. I too am on a mission to play all the games.
Don't be like, well, I don't want to learn a new game, because I've had people say that. Like, I tried to introduce people to Fate, and they're like, well, I don't want to learn another game besides D&D. I'm like, well, you stink.
Accurate.
Um, but yeah, play them, and then don't forget. Ultimately, what we are doing is playing pretend.
Yeah.
Do you know how to pretend? Then you know how to play a role playing game, and that's the foundation. That is the foundation, and everything else grows from that.
I had a friend of mine. I run a work game, and we play like 45 minutes at lunch. And she came up and she joined, and because she wanted to play it, she plays a lot of board games, and she was like, "This is fun. I love listening to the story that everyone's making." And like then I was like, "Hey, it's your turn. You got to start pretending with us, right?" And she looked and she was like, "Oh, I'm not good at this." And I was like, "Every human is good at this." Do you know what I mean? Like you have a brain in there that can make up pictures in your mind. Just tell me what they are. You know what I mean? And so she slowly started to come out of her shell, and it's actually been some of the funniest role playing we've gotten because her character is just like out there. So like she can lean into just absolute crazy. So it's really fun. So
and,
yeah.
and it's funny because I get people that tell me when it comes to the Alamo, the Dungeons and Draft House, we have standard tables that are for newer people, and we have advanced tables for more experienced people. And I get people telling me, well, I'd much rather DM for the standard tables because people that are new to the game come up with all sorts of wacky shit.
It's true.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Because they just don't have the baggage.
Yeah.
And they you know, as long as you get to tell them, hey, look, all we're doing is playing pretend. It's okay. Yeah.
And you know what? Here's another piece of homework and or advice. By learning new games and taking the chance of going out on a limb and playing a new game, you can let go of all that baggage because you've never played this game before. So you can come up, you can be the wacky shit. Be the wacky shit is good advice.
I think when I share the link on socials, that's going to be the quote, be the wacky
tagline.
shit. Yeah.
Honestly, I would title this episode that if I just was like, I'm usually like very like, this is a nice clean one, but I'll make one little note of that for sure.
All right, question number 2.
Question number 2 for closing is, are there any games you are excited to play or ideas that you just really want to implement in a game? For someone like you who plays a lot, GMs a lot, are there any things as a GM or writer of a game that like you still just really want to get into a game that you haven't yet?
Yes, there are a couple. I want to play Heart and Spire.
Oh yeah.
I've heard incredibly good things about them. I want to play the Die-RPG, which is based on a graphic novel. And oh gosh, I mean, there's a Powered by the Apocalypse cyberpunk one called The Veil. There's the Sprawl. I mean, I've got Swords Without Master, which has been around forever, and I never.
Oh yeah.
As a matter of fact, I've heard whisperings that it might be getting a some sort of a re-release or something, but don't quote me on that. Maybe by the time this releases, there'll be more information. But I mean, Worlds Without Master was a foundational Forge era game that I never played, never got around to it. I would kill to play more Fate. I wish Fate was more in the forefront. I love it. I love how the mechanics and the storytelling are so closely coupled with each other, with aspects. I think that's about it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's always going to be more exciting new games and stuff, but that's a good list. And I agree. I think create an aspect might be the most genius thing in Fate, and I yoink it for like everything I do.
Because it's not just spend a fate point to get a +2 or spend a fate point.
Right.
It's I get to do this because.
Yeah.
Not only are my aspects driving my fate point usage, but they're creating facts about my character. They're creating facts about the game. And by everybody creating their aspects, they're contributing, and they're taking on that agency that contributes to that collaborative nature. And I just wish it got more love. It just seems like it. I think that people that play Fate games must do it in obscurity, because I just don't see it. I don't see it mentioned on socials at all.
The only Fate game I know of, there's 2 podcasts. One that is strictly Fate, which is Blades of Mayari. Shout out. I interviewed the GM of that. It's a pre-colonial Filipino setting. Very cool setting. Like they're all Filipino players from the diaspora. So like they all have like differing levels of, being in touch with their culture and their history as Filipino people. And they explicitly made their setting pre-colonial Philippines, which
Okay.
is like, which is hard to get a lot of information about, right? Because like it's
For
one
sure.
of the most, ravaged island chains and countries as far as centuries of occupation and colonialism. But anyway, they play Fate very good. And also the newest season of the Crit Show is using Fate, and it's been pretty fun.
Okay.
They're doing the Clockwinders, which is like a steampunky kind of
Okay.
Fate. But yeah, I agree. I think I think the problem with Fate, as far as like finding it out there on the internet, is that I don't think anybody disputes that it's not a incredibly well designed game. I think that it's hard to present it in a way that is always cohesive and coherent to be Fate, because it relies so much on the table's co-creation of a setting.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Is kind of the thing. But yeah, agreed. Everybody go check out Fate. It's really good. And last question.
Question number 3.
What do you want to pitch, and tell people where they can find you on the internet?
Well, I already kind of did that, but
Yeah.
I was told in an interview from about a month ago that I am chronically on Blue Sky, which is not wrong, but it still kind of feels like an attack. But I am either Tezrak. So Tezrak, it was my very first D&D character.
Nice.
He was a dwarf. He was a dwarf, either fighter or a fighter cleric. I had different versions of him, but he was my very first D&D character. So he has become my social media presence. So Tezrak or Tezrak the Imp Slayer, there's a story there. But I have a link tree, Blue Sky, Discord on Tezrak.
I'll just link as many of these in the description as you are comfortable with, and
everything, all just tsunami of links.
Yeah.
It's totally
Here you go. Everybody go talk to Craig. Everybody else get in there. Go talk to Craig.
So many links.
Yeah. Click any of them. Any one of them.
But yeah, I'm pretty easy to find, I think.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Craig, for coming on. This is a great chat.
It was. Yes. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And best of luck with everything with version 4 of Shadowlight and Persona.
Yes. Coming soon.
All right.
Appreciate it.
And I appreciate you for listening to this episode of Perspective Checks. I hope that you liked it. I have linked Craig's itch in the description of this podcast, so you can just go grab a copy of Shadowlight and Persona at whatever version it's on right now, and you can do so for free, so you can start checking it out. Reach out to Craig, let him know what you think. If you have any constructive criticism or stories you want to tell him about playing his game, any of that. As a creator, we love to hear from anybody at all who is engaging with the things that we do. And if you like the things that I do, find me on the social medias at Rainy Plays Games. Email me directly at rainyplaysgamespod@gmail.com. If you want to talk like every day, you can join the DMs After Dark Discord, and we can talk about games and life and everything. And yeah, you know the drill. Rate and review. And until next time, you be the wacky shit.